I remember the first time I actually got my computer code to work. I was like, it was one of the defining moments of my entire life. I'll say this with a smile, but my thesis was completed last century in 1999. I was at Harvard University as a graduate student, and I did my thesis on a brand new type of object, exoplanets. It might have been one of the first, if not the first, PhD thesis on exoplanets. But it was so off the beaten path that people had no idea what it even was. I remember getting interviewed for a postdoctoral job, and the person interviewing me said, well, so what do you do on a daily basis? And he had no idea that I do the same thing all these other postdocs do. Exoplanet atmospheres is now a mainstream field of research, but the things that people write about now are here in this thesis. When I look back at my thesis and think of how fundamental and how foundational it was, it just feels great. I think most of the time I remember was programming. You know, the computer is our experiment, and that's what the computer code is. It's my laboratory, it's my experiment. Most of the theory existed, and I was just trying to model it or implement it in a new regime. I actually only learned how to program as a graduate student, not what I'd recommend.
Was it a difficult choice to make for you? When your supervisor suggested this thesis?
It's actually hard to remember. Let me think for a moment. Often I find students vote with their feet. They often don't make a conscious immediate choice, but they just start working more and more on a problem, and then eventually it is theirs. I think in my case, I probably jumped on it. But believe it or not, I was far from committed to a career in science. I recall at the same time, a couple of students had graduated and had left astronomy and gone into Silicon Valley. And they sent us emails saying, they love me, they want more of me. If you're interested, call. But by the time I knew I loved what I was doing, and I think even then I had the inklings that if I were to go into business or finance or Silicon Valley, I would make a ton of money only to retire and do astronomy research. So I think deep down, it was all working out in the meantime. What would be the point of that, right? I haven't felt the need to go back to the Harvard Library and look for my thesis, but I know my thesis is always there if I need it. I've met people who, they cry when they give away their kids' baby clothes, but I was never one of those, I just want to I'm done and now I move on. And so I think I felt the same way about the thesis. Does that make sense? It doesn't mean it's any less important, like the kids' first shoes or whatever. In exoplanets, the best planet, the best discovery is the next discovery. And there's always something better to do in the future. There's more work to do, bigger things to get onto. And so I don't look back and dwell on the thesis at all, but I'm still very proud of it. If I could kind of come back as an apparition and tell the younger Sarah, give her some great advice, all I would do is simply say, hang in there. I think the role of the PhD today is the same as it ever was. It's to teach students how to do research, how to have a deeper level thinking that you won't get without being faced with a challenging problem. Probably the best thing that stays with me from my thesis was that very, very, very hard problems can be solved. I think that's it, really. One's life is just consumed with the thesis, and I just remember when I was finishing it, I didn't go to any other talks. I didn't really read the news. It was just put the blinkers on and get the job done. And there's something very satisfying about devoting yourself to a single task and the kind of clarity of thinking and just being in the zone all the time. That's very satisfying. The world goes away. I mean, do you ever have that? Sometimes you're playing an instrument and you just realize the whole world went away, or you can be doing some activity. And so when you're in that zone, actually, you're happy. It's how it is.